All right, hour number 2 on a Buffalo Victory Monday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and joined now by Bills Radio Network color analyst and former Pro Bowl center for the Bills, host of the Centered on Buffalo podcast. It's Eric Wood joining us, as he does after every Bills game. And Eric, I think maybe the craziest part of the game yesterday was how quickly it went from 12-0 to like 33-0 in a matter of minutes, and it was due largely to the takeaways, obviously. But to see the Bills blow that game open, I think kind of reminded us of the firepower of this Bills offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the turnovers play a factor, and that's played a factor in the reason that the Bills set a team record in points scored this season because of the rate. A league leading, what is it now, 31 turnovers or something like that, 29, 31. And so when you lead the league and taking the ball away, a lot of times it's going to help your offense. You add a potent offense to it, and the Bills can put it on you in a hurry. And these games at times this year have gotten away from teams quickly because the Bills will score. They play good situational football. And then all of a sudden, here comes the offense again after a turnover, and boom, now the game just turned into a 4-score game when, minutes ago you had the ball and you were down 2 scores. So, yes, this is an explosive offense and now fully healthy, and seeing the types of plays that guys can make one-on-one down the field with Coleman and Cooper doing it yesterday, and just all the different ways this offense can beat you. I mean, just the ground game when the passing game's not quite there, or the elements maybe have dictated at times this year. I mean, these last couple of weeks, Josh isn't doing anything running wise on the ground, and try not to take any shots. And, so that's another element of the game for this Bills offense when it gets playoff time. And then all the different weapons that they have at their disposal in the pass game, it's fun to watch.
Certainly we saw, the team get back to its ways of churning out turnovers defensively. How much do you think, if any, can you tell that getting some guys healthy in the back end kind of aids that?
Yeah, that definitely plays a factor. When you're able to get a lead on team, that plays a factor where, you put pressure on a team. Well, you're a double-digit favorite yesterday, and so I'm not saying that the Jets felt like they came into the game from behind, but they did the same thing as they did a week ago where, they're going to be super aggressive on 4th downs in the game. Well, they went for it on their first 4th down, and the Bills were able to get a stop. They were able to force a safety in that game yesterday, which is a product of a punt, of a great punt situation in special teams. So, it takes complementary football in all 3 phases to beat a team like they did yesterday. But yes, I think getting some guys back healthy on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not saying someone else wouldn't have made that play to go pick up that fumble, but Matt Milano has a lot of experience in this league, and he flies in there, like a madman to go grab that fumble and almost put up 7 points himself on that one. Christian Benford came up with his first pick of the season. You have an experienced player in Greg Rousseau who understands that Aaron Rodgers isn't just sitting back there with this offensive line today. He's going to get the ball out of his hands in quick game, or they're going to run heavy play action to help out their pass protection. So Greg gets his hands up and tips the ball straight up in the air.
Let me expand or ask you to elaborate on Milano a little bit. We knew yesterday was an important start for him coming back from a groin injury, and I think it was probably his most impactful game that he's had this season. Obviously, we know he missed a good portion of the front 2/3 of the schedule due to the biceps injury. Comes back, then has the groin injury. I thought yesterday was his most impactful game of the season. The question for you, Eric, is how do you treat that as a coaching staff? Did that show you enough to say, you know what, let's let him sit and ready himself for the postseason, or do we need to get him some more reps in light of all the reps he has already missed?
I would lean on trusting Matt Milano in this situation. If he wants to go out there and get some work this week against New England, now you can't say I want to get some work, play one series, because that can really compromise, other guys that want to rest, and you need that guy in uniform on game day. And so, but I would lean towards letting him say, look, I know I haven't played for so much of this season. Let me get the extra work at New England this week to further get my legs under myself, play myself back in actual football shape. Or if he says, look, I'm good to go, and I know there's heavy debate right now of whether this is a better defense with Dorian Williams on the field instead of Matt Milano. Not in addition, because we saw some base yesterday, but in place of Matt Milano. And the way I lean heading into the playoffs, especially into the wild card round, would be to say, put 58 back out there. He's got 2 more weeks to just keep sharpening his game. And I'm going with the former All Pro in this situation. And if it comes to be a circumstance within the game where, you say, okay, it's time, bring in Dorian or play a little bit more base, whatever that looks like within the game, I'm fine with that. But I just feel like we've seen some progression. Unfortunately, the groin injury happened, but if you could get him back to playing close to how he did prior to the injuries, I mean, he might be the best player on the defense.
So you've got this offense that's playing and hanging 40 points or at least 38 points on the Jets, and they've scored 40 points in the last 3 of the last 4 games. And Josh mentioned after the Patriots game that they were kind of playing, I don't know, left-handed for lack of a better word, right? They didn't use all their weapons. Did you see some more of that in this Jet game, or did they kind of open it up and say, listen, let's get the 2 seed, take next week off? Did you see a little bit more firepower out of the game plan this week than maybe we were led to believe would be there?
I saw similar concepts. I probably saw a few more crossing routes. Some guys made some more plays down the field. Now, it was very windy yesterday, but it was 50-something degrees as opposed to a high of 15 going back 2 weeks ago, which, that can just add, that ball gets harder. Whether Josh is putting the same pace on it, guys might not be moving as fast out there. Regardless, other things could have contributed to that Patriots game. You also had some penalties on the offense side of the ball to back you up. And so, you put this team in a dome the prior 2 weeks against 2 much more quality teams than the Patriots, and the Bills hang 40 plus on both of them. I'm going to lean on the side of believing them when they said they came out of the Patriots game not shook in their confidence in the offense based upon limiting maybe some of the stuff they did, not executing quite as well. Sean McDermott said the focus wasn't quite as there and intensity. So you add all that up, and they came out sharper yesterday. But I just feel like when the lights are on, this offense has even got a different gear to it than maybe we've seen for these last few weeks.
All right, so let's talk about Week 18 now. Obviously, nothing to be gained, nothing to be lost by the outcome of the game. And in light of what happened to this team last year in the last 2 weeks of the season, or I should say the last week of the regular season, wild card weekend, losing Rasul Douglas, Taylor Rapp, Terrell Bernard, and Christian Benford in the span of those 2 games, how cautiously do you anticipate Sean McDermott and his coaching staff taking this week's game in light of, what happened last year, which left them severely shorthanded for the divisional playoff against Kansas City?
Yeah, this is valuable. Of course, you would want the 1 seed and get this, essentially bye week, first week of the playoffs, get home field advantage throughout. Okay, that's off the table for this season. You're locked in at the 2 seed, so you get to have this mini bye. And unfortunately, based upon NFL roster sizes, you're not going to be able to rest everybody that you would like to for this game. There's going to be plenty of starters that will be out there. Most of those will be young guys. It'll be interesting to see how Sean does it, whether it's kind of seniority at some spots or if it's caliber of player. We're gonna find those things out maybe throughout the week or closer to game time. But I just think you rest as many people as you possibly can in this game. Let those guys go out and compete. It's going to look like the end of yesterday's game where the whole sideline's jumping up and down when Shavers takes off for the long touchdown. Any plays, any big plays, especially by some of these guys that are putting on a uniform for the first time this season, will be a lot of fun for those guys in that locker room. Many of these guys, haven't got a whole lot of action this year, but they've worked their tails off behind the scenes. And so they'll be rewarded this week in an opportunity to play. And then when you look at the benefit of what this week can do, just having a week where guys like Josh Allen don't have to just scour over film and plays all week. And the mental grind is as tough this time of year as the physical grind, just because the monotony of just spending so much time in front of, whether it's the projector in the meeting room or it's your iPad at home or, iPad around the facility, you're living it, around the tape and around the play. So to be able to mentally reset and, kind of focus in on that first week of the playoffs is going to be really valuable for the squad.
Yeah, even so, and even if you wanted to rest as many guys as much as you could, there's only so much you can do. You got 53 guys. You got to play 22 of them on offense and defense and start, and special teams guys. Somebody's got to cover. I mean, you got to have some guys out there. You can't hide your 22 best players. So what's this mean, and particularly for your case, Eric, your offensive line? You going to play all 5 of those guys? I mean, how's that look? So you're limited in how many guys get to take the week off.
Yeah, I would assume you can elevate someone on the offensive line. So at the end of the game yesterday, from left to right, we saw Vandermark, Anderson, Van Pran, Granger, right guard, Torrance, right tackle, Spencer Brown. You know, that's kind of what I'm talking about based upon seniority. Because let's be real, this is not an indictment on David Edwards, but Spencer Brown, our $20 million right tackle, who's one of the best right tackles in the NFL, I'm likely resting him maybe over some other, so it's just how they determine how they're going to rest those guys. And if they can bring up a Will Clapp this week and maybe get one of those other guys out, it was always interesting at the end of games, which didn't happen a ton when I was playing, but if we were ever beating a team too bad, how we determined it. Well, if the quarterback, unless the quarterback went out, I cannot come out as the center.
Right.
But as soon as the quarterback's out, now I'm out, and now you guys all figure it out yourselves. Because generally, the backup quarterback, it's going to be easier for him to work with the guy who has been snapping to him all week in practice if he's up in a uniform for that day. So it was always pretty funny having those conversations on the sideline and maybe seeing some sour faces when they realized they weren't on the list to maybe get out of this one.
Yeah, but that's the way it's got to work. You got 8 guys up, and you got 5 offensive line they got to play, and so only 3 of them get spelled. And if you're right, and Connor McGovern is not in that list now. Mitch Trubisky, he doesn't work with McGovern as much as he works with probably Van Pran. So that's the real consideration too. And on the defensive side, they rotate those guys in all week anyway, all game anyway. So there's I guess my point is, not everybody gets to rest week 18.
No, you're right. And look, and you got to go out there and put out good film. You're going to go compete. Sometimes these require maybe a little extra caffeine. They might require a little bit louder music in the locker room. There might be quotes you're scouring for as a staff throughout the week to maybe show some guys just some extra motivation to get up for this one. Now, there's going to be plenty of guys that are getting in a uniform for this game and getting a chance to start for the Bills. They might not get many NFL starts in their entire career, and they're going to be out there flying around like a madman. I'm assuming we're going to see my boy 44 out there. He leads the Bills in tackles and really only plays the fourth quarter in special teams last week. I can't wait to watch Joe Andreessen fly around that field. Dorian Williams, I expect him to start. Unless Matt Milano, gets some run as well. I love watching 42 play football, so it'll be fun to call this game now. It'd be similar to the fourth quarter last week where me and Chris and Sal might be looking for some different storylines at times, or we're talking playoff scenarios, and we'll be prepped in that regard. But, we can talk about how some guys might need a little extra motivation, might be a little sour that they got to play this week and everyone else is getting the week off. But then, man, it's going to be a special moment for a ton of those guys out there that are going to get an opportunity to show what they can do in this league and, go put on that Bills helmet in a game, in a real NFL game. It's also special for them.
And then last one here, because the 7 seed is far from being set in stone with 3 teams in the mix, is there a preference for you? We know players say, give us whoever we get, but you have Miami in the mix, and some people will argue it's always hard to beat a team a third time in the same season. We know that Cincinnati's in the mix, as is Denver. So where do you come down among those 3 choices if you had to pick one?
From a storyline standpoint, just based upon, how the last few years and all that's worked out, if I could draw the perfect scenario, we beat the Bengals and Joe Burrow in the playoffs, then we take down Baltimore and Josh proves why he's the MVP, and then we go to Kansas City and we knock them off and then go win the Super Bowl. What a story. What a fun adventure that would be. The competitor in me says, give me Denver. In Miami, playing up here in the cold, you love your situation there. But like you said, Chris, beating a team a third time is tough. And then Mike McDaniel in the cold with Skylar Thompson a few years ago in the playoffs gave us our run for our money in the playoffs with his run game that he designed in that snowy game in Orchard Park. So give me Denver and the rookie quarterback, and I got a lot of respect for Bo Nix, how he's progressed this season. They've got an elite defense. Sean Payton, kind of coming on into the season on the hot seat. You see why he was so coveted to come back and coach in this league. So a lot of respect for them, but give me Denver in the first round. Give me a Kansas City early exit, home field advantage throughout. I don't need the storyline this year. Just get us to the dance.
Yeah. They don't ask who won the division round; they ask who won the Super Bowl. So just right. I guess last one from me. So you got this. You're tooling up into the playoffs, and the Bills are going to have a home game again. Things goes. They're gonna win another playoff game, and we go through this all the time. We did it early today. Josh is every week. Josh is the first quarterback to do this. He's the first quarterback to do that. Nobody has ever had this many years where a guy's done this. Nobody. And I said it today. The guy's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's an all-timer, and he's playing. And I said, even fans around the league, you're watching Pat Mahomes, you're watching Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, and I mentioned a bunch of guys. There is some really, truly great all-timers for some of these franchises around, and Josh is one of them. Can you put that into context of history or for your career? I mean, I know I can do it for mine. I mean, we were playing against Dan Marino and Montana and Steve Young and all of those jokers. It's kind of the same atmosphere here, and I know the league always produces great players, but these playoffs with the Chiefs and the Bills and maybe the Bengals and Baltimore for sure, man, it just seems like this is an era that is pretty special.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's especially special based upon the markets they're in. I grew up in Cincinnati, so say what you want about the Bengals. A pretty strong football town. Buffalo, obviously, just maybe the most passionate fan base in the league. Going to a game at Kansas City and seeing how they show up each and every week as a fan base. And then Baltimore, newer franchise, but, not one of the biggest cities around the country, an organization you have a lot of respect for. So the fact that those four are in those cities as well makes it special. Get on X. None of these franchises or their fan bases would trade any of these quarterbacks for one of the other ones. They'll trash yours along the way. But the fact that there are four up at the top that you debate like this shows what kind of position the NFL is in right now, especially the AFC, and having a bunch of good football to watch throughout the season. I mean, looking back on my career, Tom Brady stands out. Eli Manning went toe-to-toe with him in the playoffs. And, you had Aaron Rodgers win MVPs. Ben Roethlisberger was big and tough, and the Steelers were always a nightmare, and they had a great run of success. So, there was some big time ones, but man, and maybe it's just because as a kid I'm idolizing all these quarterbacks, but going back to your era with that 90s quarterbacks club and all that talent at the quarterback position, I mean, to me, that's a tough era of just absolute beast gunslingers. And then you add in like a Cunningham as well to the mix. I mean, it was a Warren Moon. I mean, special era of quarterbacks.
Mike Vick, yeah, all of it.
You can't claim Cunningham and Vick. I know you played along.
No, I can't play. I do claim Cunningham.
Yes, you can do that.
I'm just kidding with Vick.
Vick's a bit of a stretch.
Vick's a stretch, I'll admit. But he's one of those guys, right? I mean, it's been fun, but we are, especially in the conference. I mean, you're neck deep in all-timers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. I know he's not playing up to his ability right now, but Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, can light anybody up. And so, it's where we're sitting in the AFC right now is pretty special. It makes it a tough road to the playoff or to the Super Bowl each year when you consider who you got to beat. And if you can't stay healthy, it just becomes really difficult. Saw the last 2 years getting bumped by, the Chiefs and the Bengals. It just, and if their defenses were more banged up like ours was last year, they're probably having the same conversation about us.
Yeah.
Right.
Eric, thanks as always for the time. We'll catch you up New England way this weekend.
Yep, sounds great. Happy New Year, guys.
See you.